Okay, so for the second part, after you've completed all 4 of your bird designs, the next step is to transfer the one that you've selected from the 4 and transfer that and make it larger, filling up the white drawing paper. This will be your final bird. So I like to start with the biggest part of the body, in my case, and try to copy the shape that I did from my original design. It's just going to be bigger. So you're not pressing hard with your pencil because you're probably going to have to erase and make some adjustments, especially when you have shapes overlapping each other. So now I have my head coming and overlapping my body shape, and erase the lines for where the head comes in front of the body. Make my big triangle shaped eyes. And try to draw all the shapes the same size and shape as you did on your little drawing. You're just making the whole thing bigger, filling the space of this gray paper. So I have my hair. That's going to connect in, and then I'm going to add my wings. And one thing we've talked about in class is all the shapes that are touching the body need to not be touching at a line or at a point. They need to be enough width so that when we cut this bird around the outside edge, once we've got all our color shapes added to the design, they're going to be attached in a big enough area that they won't just fall apart when we add them to our background. So I'm adding my feet, and notice all of my shapes are overlapping with a width off of my body. That's really important so that this whole thing stays together when we attach it at the very end. And I think that's pretty close to my drawing for the correct size and shape of everything, the way I did it on my original. Okay, so now at this point, we are going to trace over our drawing with tracing paper so that we can transfer these shapes and cut them out of colored paper in our design. So we're going to grab a piece of tracing paper, and this time you're going to hold it still and trace over your whole entire drawing. Notice I haven't added any line patterns. That won't come until the very, very end. We're just talking about shapes right now and how we're going to make the shapes in different colors. So pressing hard with my pencil, and you'll find out in a couple minutes why you want to press hard. But you're going to press hard so that we can get a good amount of pencil on this front side of our paper. We're going to trace every shape exactly. And by the way, all of your shapes should have smooth lines. They shouldn't look sketchy like they're a bunch of little lines connected together. It should be a nice smooth line so that it's easy to cut right on the line when we cut our shapes of different colors to attach this over the white sheet of paper. That's eventually what we're going to do with this. You'll see in a minute. So I'm moving my free hand to hold the paper still so that my tracing paper doesn't shift as I'm tracing over all of the shapes. And make sure you erase the shapes that are the parts of the shapes that are behind the overlapping shapes, right? And our eyes. I'm going to just draw on the eyebrows and the pupils of the eyes onto the colored paper that I use for the eyes. Okay, so there I have my whole entire bird traced onto vinyl paper. Sorry about that. I'll make it so you can see the whole thing. Okay, now the next step is we're going to start with all of the shapes that are the furthest in the back. So on my bird, the wings are the furthest behind because they're overlapped by the body, and then the body's overlapped by the head, and the hairs overlap by the head. So we're going to start from the very back shapes, in my case the wings, and use those shapes to cut out first. I've selected a color paper. I'm going to use the teal color paper, and what you're going to do to transfer these shapes onto the blue paper is flip your tracing paper over to the back side. And I want you to label somewhere in the top corner the back when you turn it over so you don't get confused. You always want to trace from the back side when you are cutting your shapes out of the paper. And notice I'm lining up the shape that I'm going to cut as close to the edges of my paper as possible, because I'm not going to just waste all that blue paper by cutting it out of the middle. I'm going to make it as close to the edge so that when I trace it and cut it, I don't have to cut through a long way either to cut out the shape. So you're not wasting paper, and you're also having to not cut through any paper to get started in the process. So as long as you're pressing hard with your pencil again, tracing exactly on top of the lines that are on my tracing paper, that pencil from the front side is going to push onto and transfer that shape onto the blue paper. I don't know if you can see it. There is the lines that are transferred. And then all you do is take your scissors, and once again, when you're cutting with scissors, you open them up completely to closest to the handle and only cut maybe a ½ inch or an inch from the handle into the blades of the scissors, and turn your paper to your scissors. That's really important. You don't want your hand to get in an awkward, uncomfortable position. And if it's hard to reach and turn around and go back out, I like to just cut across to the top edges, and I'll show you how I'll go back in and cut those little pointed edges out of that. Now I'm going to just leave that extra space because my body is going to cover over that anyway, so I'll have a little room for overlapping. And notice, to cut these inside shapes, I'm cutting from the outside into the middle, and then doing that will cut that little detail without getting the paper all bent and stuff like that. So there's my shape. You can see the pencil lines are on the top. This shape is actually going to be flipped over, and we're going to glue it right onto our drawing to line it up with the base drawing. So once again, when we glue something, I'm just going to turn this so you can see a little bit better. We're using the tip of our glue bottle. Sometimes a little coating of glue dries around that tip and blocks it a little bit. I'm just going to put my glue only on the back side of the piece we're adding, and notice I'm just traveling along the outside edge only. If there's a big glop of glue, we don't want that coming out on the front of our paper, so just kind of pull it into the middle, and we flip this over once we go along the outside edge, not right on the edge, just close to the edge, and place this on our drawing. So there's one wing. Now we're going to make the other wing to match it, that I have plenty of room on my paper to trace the other side. So this is the side I'm tracing next. So I'm going to flip this over, line it up where I'm not wasting paper. I think it fits pretty good right around all the edges in this part to trace pressing hard on the back side without moving your paper, so that we can transfer this shape onto the blue paper so that I can cut that out. And basically, always remember the shapes that you cut first are the shapes that are underneath all the other ones. So here's my shape. I'm going to cut this out, glue this down on the front side of it to my white paper, and I build up my design from there. Okay, the body is going to come after, and then the head, and then the mouth is going to sit on top of the head. So work your shapes, glue them down as you go, and that's how you're going to actually create your bird in the different colored papers. And then the very last step will be adding our line patterns on top of your collaged bird. This is actually a collage technique because we're gluing layers of paper, in this case, on top of each other to create our image. Okay, so good luck with this next step.